रोशनी है। हर दिन एक तोहफा है, अपने सपनों को पूरा करो। जो रुकावटें आए सामने, उनसे तुम आगे बढ़ते रहो। हर सुबह एक नई शुरुआत है, हर रात एक नया सबक है। जो तुम दिखाना है दिल से, उसकी कीमत को समझो, जान लो। कभी ना रुकना, कभी ना झुकना, हर मुश्किल को पार करना है। जितनी भी हो दूरियां, हर सपना तुम्हारा हकीकत में बनेगा। हर लम्हा है एक नया मौका, हर मुश्किल में छिपा है सफर। जो तुमने चाहा है दिल से, वो तुझे नसीब में होगा, यकीन कर। हर दिल में एक तोहफा है, खुशियों की नई कहानी है। जो चाहोगे वो पाओगे, हर कठिनाई के बाद नई रोशनी है। हर दिन में एक तोहफा है, अपने सपनों को पूरा करो। जो रुकावटें आए सामने, उनसे तुम आगे बढ़ते रहो। आगे बढ़ते रहो, आगे बढ़ते रहो। सपनों के पीछे भागो तुम, हर दिन को संजो कर रखो। हर ख्वाब में छुपा है जादू, हर दिन एक नया तोहफा है, ये जानो हो। हर दिन एक तोहफा है, खुशियों की नई कहानी है। जो चाहोगे वो पाओगे, हर कठिनाई के बाद नई रोशनी है। हर दिन एक तोहफा है, अपने सपनों को पूरा करो। जो रुकावटें आए सामने, उनसे तुम आगे बढ़ते रहो। आगे बढ़ते रहो, आगे बढ़ते रहो। हर दिन तोहफा है, अब चलो सपनों को पाना है। हर दिन तोहफा है, अब चलो सपनों को पाना है। जब भी लगे डर तुम्हें, उससे आंखें मिलाओ। हर खौफ का सामना करो, अपने सपनों को आजमाओ। सपनों की ऊंचाइयों को अब छूने का वक्त आया है। जो बीता उसे भूल जाओ, हर पल नया सबक सिखाया है। डर को हराना है, अपने हौसले को जगाना है। जो चाहोगे तुम वो पाओगे, हर मुश्किल को पार करना है। डर को हराना है, अपने सपनों की उड़ान भरना है। जो रास्ते में रुकावटें हैं, उन्हें पार करके ही चलना है। हर ठोकर तुम्हें सिखाएगी, हर गिरावट एक नया सबक है। तुम खुद को पहचानो, हर डर को तुम मिटा दो। जब भी लगे कठिनाई, बस खुद पर विश्वास रखो। हर गम को हंसकर भुला दो, अब सपनों को हकीकत में बदल दो। रखो तुम कभी न झुको, हर मुश्किल तुम्हें और मजबूत बनाएगी। जब तक तुम कोशिश करते रहोगे, तब तक जीत तुम्हारी होगी। डर को हराना है, अपने हौसले को जगाना है। जो चाहोगे तुम वो पाओगे, हर मुश्किल को पार करना है।
Amway President Rich DeVos is a nationally known speaker. His talks have received many awards. Although he is in great demand as a public speaker, the majority of his speaking engagements are to audiences of Amway distributors and prospective distributors. Here, he discusses why Amway is the ideal way to achieve success in a business of your own. The co-founder of Amway Corporation, Rich DeVos.
We're just going to visit a little bit tonight about the Amway sales plan. Now, that's shocking, isn't it? I don't have any great speeches for you on motivation or, how to get your mental attitude all conditioned so you can set the world on fire, and how to change all negative people to positive people by pushing the right button in your brain someplace and turning you all around. But I just want to take the sales plan a little bit and take some of the features in it. It was developed through a period of over 25 years that this basic plan was done. And I know some of you are there tonight, you're relatively new, you're in the business, but you're not in the business. You'd like to believe it, but you don't believe it. You came here because you want to believe it, and yet you've gone out and tried to recruit people, and they look at you like you're crazy. Well, you probably haven't had that, but I've had that. See? And I get so excited about the plan that somebody says, how can you be so excited about a simple little thing like this? And so I took down what we considered all through the years some of the really special features of this program. I'd just like to run through them and show you why some of these things are mighty important. And the next time you're talking to somebody who's laughing at you or scoffing at you a little for being in this silly business, think of some of these things. Because once you get some of these things committed inside of you, people won't be able to scare you off or shake you out of this thing. You'll just charge right on through until you arrive at the goal you seek out of the Amway business. Now, some of us are luckier than others. Some of us are born into different households. I was fortunate in that I was born into a household where my father taught me some fundamental things that were important. One thing he always said to me is, there's no such word as can't. That's a pretty great thing. I never quite forgot that. I'd say, I can't do this. I can't do that. He'd say, you say can't once more and I'll knock your block right through that wall. Well, fortunately, he never did. But fortunately also, he built into us a concept of thinking in terms of what we could do, as opposed to so many households where the parents themselves become a party to the act, saying, oh, what makes you think you can do that? See? Or else you got friends who always say that to you. No matter what dream you get or idea you get, somebody says, you can't do it. I know they did it, but what makes you think you can do it? See? Well, my background was one of always thinking in terms of what I could do. Well, the other thing that happened was my father kept talking to me about getting into a business of my own. That was the first point of my lineup of things. Now, the reason I put the feature of owning your own business is that Amway-type products are distributed through many means. But the concept of Amway is consistent with what we believe are the goals of millions and millions of people around the world, is to have freedom. Freedom is the most precious commodity in the world, and millions of people are seeking freedom. Now, there's political slavery, such as is practiced in various countries, where government imposes edicts, where government says, you can't be in business, and somebody else, because they know somebody, says, well, you can open the store, but nobody else can. And most countries in the world, many countries of the world, you could never have an Amway business because it's all controlled by somebody in the government who's going to decide who can be the businessmen in town. It's all controlled in the political swirl. So the concept of having a business of your own is unique to the free countries of the world. where you can come here tonight and all you do is join up with them and say, yeah, I want to be in business for myself. Well, you know, that principle alone has got to be exciting. The mere knowledge that you can have a business of your own in Amway. But you know the stumbling blocks involved in having that are that most types of businesses require money. They require such an amount of money that although it's possible in this country and in other countries to get in business of your own, it's beyond the reach of most people. Well, those who got a little money or their folks had money, they can get into businesses of their own. But the guy who was just struggling to get along and make a living never has a chance to either build the credit or accumulate the cash. Well, I make this my number one point because I believe so many millions of people want it. And Amway is, to the best of my knowledge, the closest business opportunity there is in the world that is made available to people anywhere. And you know, when you think about talking to your friends or your neighbors or yourself, that you can offer them a chance to get in business for themselves, this has got to be something that shakes you up a little bit. So I know that's not a dramatic thing. I know you've all heard about getting in business for yourself. But think of it as a feature that's not only the chance to get in business, but that it makes it possible for you to get in business. And so you've read all the stories and you hear about all these successful people, but those are not always duplicatable by you. And so the Amway plan is one you can offer to anybody, anywhere. I don't care what economic level they're on. I don't care what their educational level is. I don't care what church they go or don't go to. I don't care what color they are. I don't care. I just don't care. We can offer everyone a chance to begin a business of their own. Well, my second point ties on to the first one, because there's basically two things that keep people from succeeding in business. Number one, as I talked to you about, is the economic aspect. The availability of enough funds to get established. Now, carry that a little further. Some of you say, oh, I'd love to open a Pizza Hut. Well, go ahead and open a Pizza Hut then, if you think that would be so great. I got a lot of friends and people I talk to, and so have you. Someday I'm going to have a business of my own. Well, what are you waiting for? Well, why don't you do it then? You know, always, well, next year. And next year, it's the next year. So the economic availability of the Amway plan is what makes it potentially great, because you can offer it to anybody, anywhere. Well, as I say, the second point ties to it. Because the second reason people don't is because they are afraid to. So, I don't know how. I'd love to have a Pizza Hut, but I don't know how to make pizza. So I'd like to run a men's clothing store, but I just don't know anything about men's clothing. Or I'd love to run a gas station, but I'm not enough of a mechanic to make money in the back room. See? There's all sorts of business opportunities you think about, but then you suddenly couple that with the fact that they all take specialized skills and knowledge. They all are sophisticated. Like somebody says, I'd like to be a doctor. Oh, that's fine. I'd like to be a doctor. But you see, then I'm confronted with the problems of becoming one, which will involve 8 or 10 years of education, all the cost that's involved. So, you know, you and I can talk about that all day long. But the odds in our making that a reality for us are beyond most of us. We either don't have the mental ability or the disciplines to sit down and study those books, or the skill in our hands to make it all happen, or whatever it might be. So, you know, there's just no sense in talking about some of those things, because the degree of training that's required is so tremendously sophisticated. And so then comes Amway and solves number 2 problem. We have a little kit that has all the answers in it. If you have nothing more than an Amway kit, you can become a Crown Direct in this business. That's something to think about. Now, you compare that with the medical problem or all the rest of it. You see, we have to go off to school and get accepted and meet grade standards. And here's a bit, we don't run you through a mental test. We don't ask you what your IQ is. We just say, here's a little kit, and that means that in it are the seeds of the training program that's within the reach of each and every person in this room and virtually everybody who has any ability to read and comprehend it all. I know Ruby Bowles, who lived up in Missoula, Montana. Some guy came through town one day, met her, told her about the great Amway business. She took the kit, signed up, and he left town. Never heard from him again. She took the kit, threw it in a closet. Maybe some of you got a closet where you left yours for a while. Some of you hide them under your bed. Some of you keep them in the trunk of your car because you don't dare tell your wife what you did. But one Sunday morning, Ruby was feeling low and depressed, and things weren't going like she thought they ought to, and she opened the closet door, and she saw that old kit sitting there. She opened up the kit and started reading the manual, and she got all turned on. She said, "This is fantastic. I can do this," she said. And sitting in the quiet of her own living room in Missoula, Montana, a little town in the mountains, Ruby Bowles read and comprehended the Amway sales plan and says, "Get me some of those," and started out the next morning telling people about Amway, and went on to build a very successful direct distributorship. And all she had was a little manual. That's what the kind of a business that Amway has. And you and I don't talk a lot about this as a feature, but you see, it's the seeds of success only because it's a program that you can make available to all those good friends of yours. And you don't have to run them through the third degree to see whether it's within their capability of doing this. Oh, I know you get hung up on things, you know. Say, well, I don't want to sell soap, you know. I'm a used car salesman. So it's, well, after all, I'm an engineer. I'm this or I'm a that. Hey, we sell soap for a very simple reason, folks. We sell soap because people buy soap. Did you know that? And it's a lot more fun to sell a product people buy than to try and sell a product people don't buy. And if you're going to get in the selling business, sell something people want. And so I listen to people, and they get all sorts of, I want big, I'm going to get in the real estate business. I don't want that little two-bit stuff. We offer not only a program that's within the reach of people, but a training program that is comprehensible by anybody. And as important as it might be to be in a group that has good meetings, as good as it might be to be benefiting you to have a sponsor who's helpful and who's got the answers and a lot of experience and carries a good stock, even in this business, if your sponsor lives in Michigan and you're here all alone, the difference in your success will not revolve around the training given, because success is gainable from the essence of a very simple little sales kit. Well, that's the second point. Not a big one. But remember it, because it is the essence of duplication. It is what makes it possible for those of you who don't even know how to spell chemistry to be highly successful in the chemistry industry. Well, my third point takes off a little bit on some of the exclusive features. You know, we talk about the Amway business being a family business. Now, I realize that we have single people who are succeeding in this business. We have widows who are succeeding in the business. We have widowers who are doing great in the business. Those are all true. But I want you to see a dimension. Because even though you might be single or having to be the head of your household, whether you choose it or not, the great numbers of people who are married people and who are family people have found themselves going off in this direction. The guy goes to work here and the gal goes to work over here. Your lives tend to drive apart because of economic situations. You have a job here, he has a job there. You have your buddies that you run out with from work, and she's got the girl she goes out with over here. And you tend to find your family kind of floating in the middle. You know, the Amway business is a family concept business. I was in New York one day making a speech. On the left of me was sitting the president of Avon. On the right was the president of Fuller Brush. This is a true story. And the guy from Fuller Brush says to me, he says, you know, you guys at Amway, you really got it made. I said, what do you mean I got it made? You know, he says, in Fuller Brush all these years, all we ever got was the fellas involved. But he says, you got both members of the family involved in the Amway business. Man, he says, if we could ever get the gals involved in Fuller Brush, we could really get this thing going. I said, that's right. And it wasn't 2 minutes later that the president of Avon said to me, you know, he says, you guys really got it made. I said, what do you mean? He said, no. He said, we get all the Avon gals involved, but We never get them in. And you get both of them in the business. Boy, he said, if we could ever find some way to get them both involved, we'd really go. It was about that time I told him we were going to catch up with him anyway. And he said, well, I don't mind your catching up with me, but don't expect me to sit around waiting on you. See? But, you see, the essence of what they were talking about was that they saw a dimension in Amway of the coming together of the family unit. But you know, Amway, through all of the days that Jay and I were in the business, we never sat down in Amway and said, well, if we get both of them involved, we'll do more business. But it always revolved around the fact that the core and the great strength of our country revolved around the family unit. And if we could build the business aspects of Amway on the family idea, we would do something to make the world a better place and also improve the economic situation for many people. Well, some of you have never even thought about that in Amway. But, just look around you tonight. It's all husbands and wives in the main. Couples, people together, working together in a family enterprise. John and Pat Hendrickson, who live in California, their children recently held an Amway rally. But you had to be children of Amway distributors to get in. And they had all the kids come in for a meeting. And all the kids got up and they got all their grumbles out about how the folks go out and meet nights and put on meetings and then they go to conventions. And they said, you know, but they're working to build a business for all of us as a family. And then the different kids got up and told how they worked to help build the family business. And one kid got up and said, well, I handle the telephone calls at our house. And when distributors call and place orders, I take the orders over the telephone or answer the questions and I take the messages. And somebody else said, well, I help because I serve the coffee at the meetings at our house. I serve coffee to everybody. Somebody else was busy, said, well, I help because I stand at the door and greet the people when they come into the house. And one of the other kids said, well, I help because I put the stock on the shelves. And somebody else said, I fill orders. And the kids were telling how they were participating in helping to build the family business. And the younger one of the young kids got up and said, well, I sweep the floor in the stock room. Well, here's a dimension you and I miss so often in it. If you have been in the Amway business for a while and have gone to any of the rallies or conventions, you know when we started, we get to the hotel and say, hey, we want to have a meeting here tonight. We're going to have 500 people. Say, what's the room charge? He said, how many people you bringing? I said, 500 will be here. You can have the room for free. I say, hey, mighty nice of you. So we got there that night and we got all the bars set up, man. He's counting a big, big take at the bar. But that's the only time you ever get a free room is once in this business. Because they quickly discover all the people go to the meeting and they don't all come and stand around the bars. Because you see, it's not a bunch of guys who are off at a meeting, but it's a family coming, working with other people together, and they didn't have to run around out of bars to find some way to console themselves. Fantastic business. If you are eligible for a trip to a seminar, we don't call up and say, which one of you is going? All of our award programs are geared to take both of you. That's an expensive business for a company, but it's still two people that go. Maybe the gal isn't too active in the business, maybe the husband isn't, but it doesn't make any difference. The concept remains constant. All family affairs. And you see, we know that this is one of the great secrets of this organization. It's an exclusive Amway thing. And a lot of you people work for a lot of companies, and you're sent here and you're sent there. But in Amway, you always go together. And it's a wonderful thing when you're talking to people who are trying to recruit them about how this one works. Well, when I look at the Amway plan and start to recount some of these things, a business of your own, complete training given to you, family concept. These are in many ways exclusive with the Amway organization. But the next point has to do with income potential. Because virtually everybody who's ever worked and began to move ahead within a company suddenly found themselves cut off at the pass. And there are men in this room who suddenly began to make as much money as the management in the company. They quickly found the commission rate was changed. because they didn't want you making more than they were making. Or you suddenly found your territory was cut in half. Or some other way they found to change the deal on you, because they didn't conceive of anybody doing that well. Well, the thrill to me in the Amway business is to see you make more and more and more. What did somebody do? Sit around, figure out how to change the deal because somebody made Crown? So, well, we better change the percentage now that somebody got that far. Why, we rang the bells and cheered and said, happy day, isn't that great? They're there, let's keep them there and keep them going. And as more Crowns have developed in the business and other people are growing in the business, why, they've outgrown the awards that we offer. But we've never changed the compensation system. One night we had 8,000 or 9,000 people there. We had a bunch of people coming across the stage here getting diamond pins, and they get up and say, I just got a new Cadillac, and somebody else had just bought a new VW. I don't know. But, they're all talking about the bigger things that they had accomplished out of Amway, and somebody else had got a new home, and they mentioned that. And after the meeting, some gal came up to me down front, and she said, I'm glad for all those people that they could make that kind of money. But, she said, Amway's more important than that to me. She says, today school started, and I sent my kids to school today. And she started crying. She said, today was the first day my kids ever went to school with new clothes. The first time ever with new clothes. She says, up till now, they always took hand-me-downs. We always had to wear somebody else's cast-offs. And she said, I can't tell you how thrilled I was to watch them walk out of that door with a new pair of shoes on. Well, that's what Amway's all about. That you can take out of the Amway plan the very least or the greatest amount as you would choose. As I travel these days and look around, I see halls like this filled with young people in their 20s. Great numbers of them. Jay and I started selling Neutralite in 1949. I was 23 at the time. And the people in the Neutralite were amazed to think that young guys like this were in the business. And I'm thrilled every day because when I look at the people who are at the top of the Amway world today, most of them started when they were in their 30s or 40s. And when I see you young cats coming along and in your 20s, listen, you can't settle for Crown. You better think in terms of when you personally sponsor 50 or 60 direct distributors. Somebody asked us the other day, what are you going to England for? What are you going to Australia for? And I said, because it's there. That's why we're going there. Because we must demonstrate the workability of the plan in various cultures and various parts of the world to prove that people everywhere are seeking what we have to offer, and we want to make it available to them, and that's what. You have no excuse to sit there anymore. And as long as you are physically and mentally able, it's your responsibility to do all you can. Neither Jay nor I have to work any more than you do. I mean, maybe a little less than you do. We work because there's work to do. I said that to somebody else today as we were driving along. Somebody said, well, if I get in debt, then I work more. I said, well, that's all right, get in debt, but I don't recommend it. You must learn to work more because there's work to do. You must learn to make more because there's other people who need your help. You must learn to recruit better. I don't care how successful you are, because there's other people who never knew they had a chance like we offer. That's why you must do it, because it's there to do. And when you work with that concept and that philosophy, everything else will come in place for you. So I want you to think in those terms. Well, my fifth point's a very simple one. I've already alluded to it. You can have a business of your own. We talked about the fact you can do it as a family unit. You can start on a part-time basis. How many deals have you ever heard about, or business opportunities have you ever heard about, where the guy says to you, I don't want you to get ahead of yourself, I don't want you to gamble, I don't want you to quit your jobs, I want you to start part-time, prove to yourself you can do it, and when the time comes to go full-time, you'll know it, you'll be ready for it, and you can move right on into it. Hey, simple little feature you forget when you talk to people. Make sure you assure them and reassure them that they get the same deal part-time as anybody ever got, no matter how many times they came in. Start on a part-time basis. Crawl before you creep, and creep before you walk is the way we do it in Amway, because we got time to wait. We're not going anywhere tomorrow. And so we keep saying, you just start. Just try and see what can happen to you. And as you develop your skills in the Amway business, well, it's unbelievable what had happened to you. And the list of people who are highly successful in this business is long. All started the same way, part-time, learning the business. Well, my sixth point has to do with health and accident. We talk about health and accident insurance, and somebody says, well, our company has a policy, and all that's fine. And if I get injured, there's workman's compensation, and that's fine. How many weeks will they pay you? 590? 7,644? 2? 4? 6 months? You know, if you were in Amway and you had a successful Amway distributorship, not a big one, successful direct distributorship, nice group of distributors in it, you got sick, were unable to carry on for a while, it doesn't stop. Your people go on, keep working. Fred and Jan Sanborn singers fame, live in California. They're diamond directs today. They weren't at that time. Fred got hepatitis, was unable to work for an entire year. Couldn't carry on. During the course of the year, Fred's income increased. So did his volume. That's what I call health and accident insurance, of the best kind. And when he was able to work again, he could pick it up from that level and build it on to greater heights. I gave this story one night, and a fella came up to me, and he had his hair all off his head, and he had a ruby pin on. He said, I've been incapacitated for the whole past year. I've had brain surgery 3 times. He said, thank God we had a good Amway business going. He said, during the course of the past year, I've been in and out of hospital bills like you wouldn't believe. I got them paid, and my income's bigger today than it was a year ago, because we had an Amway business going. And because somebody didn't come down here and say, well, you're not putting out enough, Mac. I think it's time you were replaced. I can see some of you guys, you get sick. I'm sure what your companies will do is say, well, Harry's sick. Call up the house, say, Mary, Harry's unable to work for all these weeks. Why don't you come in and take his job and fill in for a while? And Harry, if you're out for 6 months, you can go back, but don't think your job will be there anymore. They'll already have somebody else in there carrying on for you. That's true, isn't it? Because it has to go on. When you join the world of Amway, you got your own world going for you, too, and it all takes on a different look. Well, number 7 is a very simple one. It talks about transferability. You can own the biggest Ford Motor Agency. You can own the biggest car dealership anywhere you want to go, but the day you drop dead, baby, it's all over. You don't think so? You try it. You go ask your local Ford dealer. He'll tell you. He has a franchise to him and him alone. And the day he's unable to carry on the work, it's all over. Oh, a lot of times the kids take it over only because they had the money and because they were trained and because the Ford Motor Company said they could. But when you have an Amway distributorship of direct distributors or above and you've got a successful business going and you are unable to carry on because you pass away, all we do is get the papers and all the income continues to your household. My personal sponsor, the gal who brought us to Neutralite, Chucky Moscon, she and her husband were both living at that time, recruited us in the business. Jay and I went on. We built a very successful Neutralite distributorship, and then we started the Amway business. All these years, Chucky's derived the income from our line of sponsorship. Her husband passed away about, I suppose it's 6-7 years ago now. Every Christmas she writes just this word to thank you. Every month I receive my 3% money. I just can't believe it. Because she and her husband had the courage and the willingness to put forth the effort. And some of you young cats here, you better think about that one down the road. And right now you're healthy and well, and you don't worry about that. You just think about it. That what time and effort you're putting in now pays off in Amway for years to come. Some of you folks who are a little older, you've been with that outfit a little long, you better think about it. And if you get busy building an Amway business, there is no other business in the world that does it. There is no other business in the world that I know of that does this thing. You talk about exclusive features of a program. The Amway business has transferability to the survivor of two. And after that, it can be transferred in ownership onto your children. And the income derived from the effort you folks are putting in today will go on to take care of your kids if something should happen to you. Well, maybe you never thought about that dimension of the Amway business, but it is something to think about. What a great thing when another member of the family could pick up an existing business and add to it and build it to new dimensions. So I tell you, some of you have been sitting around this business, you've been looking at it, you've been wondering it for real, you wonder if Amway's going to last. Amway's not really on trial tonight. Maybe you are. There's not much question about where Amway's going. You've got to answer these questions that I'm putting to you personally. Is something like this important to you? Could you use something like this? Then what have you been waiting for? You're afraid because your Aunt Susie laughed because you said you were in the soap business? Is all that's standing between you and the things I've been talking about? Because the guys at work chuckled? Because somebody said, oh, what makes you think you can sell? And that's keeping you from getting on with it? Your mother-in-law's chuckled? Is she going to take care of you when you can't work anymore? Is she going to put your kids through college? How many thousand a month is she going to pay you? Nothing like this business will pay you if you get off it and get on with it. By the way, on transferability, I got one more story I want to tell you. A young gal came to meet us, holding a young baby in her arms, and she says, "You remember me?" I said, "Yes, I remember when we were here last time you came to meet us, you and your husband." She said, "Well, I don't know if you know it or not. My husband's passed away since then." True story. You know, she says, he got in Amway because he had cancer and didn't have long to live. But he wanted us to have something to carry on. He was 26. And so we worked awful hard to get the thing started. And she said, "You know what? We've made direct since then." She said, "When he passed away, all the distributors were there." She said, "You wouldn't have believed it." And she said, "Our business is going on," and she handed me the baby and said, "This baby's going to have a future because he and we took this thing and did something with it when we had a chance." That's a tearjerker. And they're continuing to work and build their business because they were forced to see some of what I'm trying to communicate to you as to what this business could mean to you. Well, my 8th point hits on no favorites. You know, it ought to be something for you to think about, that I don't care if it's my kid or Jay Van Andel's kid, nothing can cut in between you and where you want to go. Oh, isn't that sweet to know? Sweet to know that when you reach for the stars, nobody can cut in on you. Because nobody can change the deal on you or play favorites on you. And most of you worked in outfits when you're about to get a promotion, just sure and shooting. They transfer somebody in, or they send the son-in-law in, or the superintendent had a buddy some other department, and there you stand with egg on your face one more time. Oh, I tell you want to know something else? In the Amway, you talk about exclusives, the Amway Corporation has no house accounts. I've had companies come in and offer to buy $1 million worth of Amway from us. I said, "I won't sell you." A friend of mine recently came over and said, "Well, Wally Buttrick from Grand Rapids was trying to recruit him, you know. Give him the big story and get in Amway." He's a preacher friend of mine. And hey, he said, "You ought to get in." This guy goes, "You know, Rich, if I get in, I'm going to get under you, don't you?" So he said, "Don't, you know, I'm listening to Wally, but, you know, be assured I'd come in under you." And I said, "I don't recruit people. I wouldn't take you under any circumstances. I'm prohibited from recruiting. The Amway Corporation doesn't recruit. No Amway employee can recruit. And it's in any management job. And the reason they can't do that is so nobody within the company is tempted to take any lead that would come from any place in the world and sneak it off and then follow it up personally. Any lead that comes to the company has to go back to from whence it came, to the organization. Every person who joins the world of Amway joins through somebody like you. There are no shortcuts to the top. There's no special privileged positions. You talk to him, this guy's a big sales manager, and he calls. I get those calls every once in a while. I manage to get through his secretary and say, "Hey, there, DeVos, I'm sure you guys have got a special place for somebody like me. I've been in selling and marketing for quite a while. I got quite a few salesmen under me, and what kind of a deal you got?" I said, "Oh, I got a dandy." I got a dandy spot for you. Who told you about it? It's so-and-so. So go back and see him. That's a dandy deal I get. That's the only deal I get. I got no other deals. No other places. Hey, you don't think that's a big point? You're applauding to it. Think about it. Think on these things I'm telling you. They are unique and special and exclusive in the world of Amway. And I cover them because some of you haven't caught on yet. You haven't got the message, or else you'd be doing more. I came down here to help you get to do more. What I was really down here to do is put a burr in your saddle, or to put a stone into your shoe. And if you don't want to do any more, listen, we understand, okay? I just want you to make sure if you decide to quit the world of Amway, at least you go out knowing what you quit. And then you go home and stew about it. Your business. My last point, I just talk a little bit about Amway. It won't take long. Some of you wonder whether Amway's going to make it. Listen, we just started our 69th building program. Another 110,000 square foot building. We're going to make Ada the center of the world of free enterprise. And we're going to have people from all over the world coming to Ada, Michigan to find out how it really happens and what can happen when you let people have a chance to make free enterprise work for them. This business comes closer to making free enterprise a living reality for the people in the street than any other business that's ever been put forth in the land. And that's what it's all about. Well, hey, you don't have a company that just peddles a little soap. We're manufacturers and international distributors on a grand scale. And we have no customers but you. Literature and sales aids like you've never seen. Research and development, quality control. Every bit of merchandise that hits the door at Ada goes through a quality check. Product lines? Why, we talk about saturation. The only thing I know is we're farther behind now than when we started. Because when we started, we sold one all-liquid detergent. That's all we had to offer to people. Today we got a full line of household products, car care products, cosmetics, and you name it, baby, and we got it. Everything. Yeah. Tremendous. You want to get in the business? You want to get in the business that's in all the businesses. Get in the Amway world. And more than that, you can build a distributorship in England, all across the great country of Canada. You can build a distributorship in Australia and other countries of the world as we go. You getting the point? Hey, this is really something. Recently, somebody who runs a plan somewhat similar to ours, came out with an announcement that they were going to go international. And they had to announce their international sales manager said, it's a shame, of course, that our existing distributors won't be able to participate in the program, but being that it's in other countries, it's just not possible to do that. Oh, it's possible. They just didn't want to do it because they didn't have you in mind. They weren't dedicated to making sure that you went wherever that company went. And that's what Amway's dedicated to. That where we go, you go. Because we're partners together, and that's what it's going to be. Well, saleable products, international. Shoot. I want to end on one simple point. You can do it. Because, you see, I can talk about all these things, but yet knowing within you, it sounds good, big shot. But I ain't never done nothing like this before, and I don't know if I can. I'm going to tell you something. You can. I know you can. And you'll never know either until you try. And I know one thing. If you try, you will. I just know that. You got to know it. You got to try it because you got so much to lose by not trying. You got so much to gain by trying. You got to have a go at this, my friends. And if you're in it, you got to start telling your friends about it, because some of them don't know the dimension, the breadth of the Amway program. Well, Charlie and Elsie Marsh blazed the trail when they made Crown. They built a new image for people. Art and Ollie Charlton made it. Jim and Sharon Jantz from Vancouver, British Columbia made it. To me, that was a great achievement, not only because they made it, but because this was the first Crown outside of the United States. People who made it in a different country and proved you could do it there. They just took the plan and went with it and built this fantastic business. They started in the basement of an apartment in The little town called Three Hills, Alberta, Canada. The nearest warehouse was 4,000 miles away. He was teaching school at the time. And he said he had one old chair in there, and they kept an old blanket over it, hoping nobody sat on it so the springs wouldn't hit him too hot. Maybe you got a chair like that. That's how Jim and Sharon started. It's a challenge for you, but it's a thrilling thing for me to relate to you. That Jim and Sharon, who taught school in a little town up in Canada, could take the Amway plan with great hardships and problems and make it happen to them. So you see, I know it can happen to you. The only reason you're not doing it is you haven't made up your mind to do it. I hope you're ready to make up your mind to do it tonight. Because if you are, all the things I've been talking to you about can happen. But it takes a belief. It takes a faith. And tonight I wanted to give you some of this to strengthen your faith, to where you can say, I can see it, Rich. I get the point. I didn't really see the dimensions of Amway until now. But now that I see them, I know I got to get on with it. And I have a little poem I close with, and it's entitled Faith. It says, doubt sees the obstacles. Faith sees the way. Doubt sees the darkest night. But faith sees the day. Doubt dreads to take a step, but faith soars on high. Doubt questions, who believes? Faith answers, I. And I hope you can say, I believe. I know that I can do it. You just let me go. You go and you do it. Thanks for coming tonight.
Very, very happy good morning to all of you. Friends, listening together में आज मैं भास्कर पांडे एडवोकेट प्रतापगढ़ उत्तर प्रदेश से आप सभी का होस्ट। दोस्तों, आज हम लोगों ने ऐसे स्पीकर को सुना जो आज वर्ल्ड के एक माने जाने ऐसे स्पीकर, ऐसे मोटिवेटर जिनके बनाए हुए सिद्धांतों पर हम लोग नहीं बल्कि आज दुनिया के बहुत से लोग उसका लाभ ले रहे हैं, जिनका नाम रिच देवास, नाम से ही रिच, एक अमेरिकी अरबपति व्यवसायी थे दोस्तों। और 4 मार्च 1926 से 6 सितंबर 2018 तक दुनिया में उन्होंने तहलका मचा दिया, जिनके सिद्धांतों पर आज बहुत सारे परिवार अपना ही नहीं बल्कि अपने पूरे कम्युनिटी को आगे बढ़ा रहे हैं दोस्तों। और उन्होंने एक ऐसे प्लेटफॉर्म को इस्टेब्लिश किया जिनके आधार पर हम लोग आज चाहे जिस प्रोफाइल के हों, लेकिन आज ऐसा एक प्लेटफॉर्म मिला है कि हम विभिन्न तरह के ग्रो डेवलपमेंट कर सकते हैं। मैं अपनी बात आप लोगों से करता रहूँगा। हमारे बीच राम एंड गौरी मैम ने हैंड रेज किया है, सो मोस्ट वेलकम ऑन डिजिटल स्क्रीन। आपको हमने अनम्यूट का रिक्वेस्ट दे दिया है। यस
सर, और आज की टॉक बहुत ही अच्छी थी और मैं बहुत ही एक्साइटेड थी इस टॉक में से अपने पॉइंट शेयर करने के लिए। मैं एक एजुकेटर हूँ लखनऊ से, और रिच डिवॉर्स की ये टॉक जब इन्होंने दी थी, आज से बहुत साल, आई डोंट नो 25-30 साल पहले जब भी दी होगी, तब मुझे आज भी उतनी ही रेलेवेंट लग रही थी जब शायद तब होगी। तो कितनी डेप्थ है उनकी बात में। मुझे जो अपने लिए पॉइंट्स अच्छे लगे, उनमें सबसे अच्छा पॉइंट तो एक्चुअली जिससे उन्होंने एंड किया था, डाउट सीज ऑब्स्टिकल, फेथ सीज द वे। और एक बहुत अच्छी पोएम है ये, बहुत ही बढ़िया, बहुत ही अच्छी लगी मुझे लाइन। और उन्होंने शुरुआत में बोला था, जो उन्होंने अपने फादर से सीखा था, कि देर इज नो सच वर्ड एज कांट। कुछ भी नहीं है ऐसा जो हम कर नहीं सकते। तो बहुत बिगनिंग से ही वो इस चीज में उनकी ये सेल्फ इमेज थी, उनका ये फेथ था कि वो जो चाहे वो कर सकते हैं, जिससे जो कुछ डिसाइड कर लिया। और ये मुझे भी लगता है कि कुछ हद तक मेरे पेरेंट्स ने भी ये बोला हमेशा मुझे कि ऐसा कुछ नहीं है जो आप कर नहीं सकते, आप सब कर सकते। दूसरी चीज जो मुझे बहुत अच्छी लगी, उन्होंने बोला एवरीबडी कैन बाय सोप एंड एवरीबडी कैन बिल्ड दिस बिजनेस। तो इसीलिए एक ऐसा बिजनेस है जो मुझे अभी भी लगता है कि बहुत सारे फ्रेंड्स मेरे डिजाइन की फील्ड में मुझे समझाते रहते हैं बहुत अच्छे बिजनेसेस हैं, लेकिन मैं उनसे यही पूछती हूँ कि सब लोग खरीदेंगे हमारा प्रोडक्ट? तो किसी के पास कोई जवाब नहीं होता। तो मुझे अभी भी इस ये बहुत रेलेवेंट बात है कि हम कुछ ऐसा इस बिजनेस में सेल कर रहे हैं या प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं लोगों को जो सबको चाहिए, और सब लोग इसको बिल्ड कर सकते हैं। एवरीबडी कैन बिल्ड, एनीबडी कैन नॉट, बट एवरीबडी कैन डेफिनेटली बिल्ड दिस बिजनेस। उसके बाद तीसरा पॉइंट जो मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा, एमवे, इन एमवे टाइम एंड मनी ऑलवेज पेज ऑफ। और ये चीज मुझे इतनी सही लगती है कि कितना भी जितना भी समय मैंने इसमें लगाया है, कितना कम भी लगाया है तो भी रिटर्न आया है, ज्यादा आया है तो भी रिटर्न आया है। कभी ऐसा नहीं हुआ कि समय लगाया और कुछ हुआ नहीं, ऐसा नहीं हुआ कभी भी। और इट पेज ऑफ मच मोर देन वी इन्वेस्ट। तो ये सारे पॉइंट्स मुझे अपने लिए बहुत अच्छे लगे, और इस टॉक को मैं एक बार दोबारा सुनूंगी। थैंक यू सर।
थैंक यू, थैंक यू, थैंक यू गौरी मैम। बिल्कुल आपने बहुत ही स्पेसिफिक पॉइंट्स हम लोगों के सामने रेज किए। थैंक्स अ लॉट। और नो डाउट ये फैमिली कॉन्सेप्ट बिजनेस की बात किया था उन्होंने। और इस अब हमारे सामने जयलाल सर ने हैंड रेज किया है। सो मोस्ट वेलकम सर ऑन डिजिटल स्क्रीन।
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू। इस सीडी में इंग्लिश में सर टॉक थी थोड़ा वो तो हम लोग जो लिख रहे थे वो समझ रहे थे। और बहुत अच्छा लग रहा था उनके एक संघर्ष की कहानी जो हम लोग सुने। बहुत अच्छा लगा कि संघर्ष अगर जीवन में है तो वास्तव में संघर्ष से घबराना नहीं चाहिए। और उनके जीवन में बहुत संघर्ष आया बिजनेस करने। जैसे लिक्विड डिटर्जेंट के बारे में सर ने बताया कि वो लोग हंस हंस रहे थे कि लिक्विड डिटर्जेंट भी काम करेगा। तो उस पर जो है वो फोकस नहीं किए, वो अपने काम पर लगे रहे। और एक दिन देखिए दुनिया भर में हर जगह, ऑस्ट्रेलिया में, अमेरिका में, इंग्लैंड में, हर जगह वो अपना साबित किए। और आज देखिए आज हम लोग उन्हीं के नीचे जो है काम कर उनका उनके प्रोडक्ट को एंजॉय कर रहे हैं। बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है। जैसे प्रोडक्ट दुनिया भर में है ही नहीं, पहले तो घबरा गए होते तो ऐसा प्रोडक्ट बनाते ही नहीं। तो बहुत अच्छा लगा उनकी कहानी सुन करके। और उसी कहानी को हम लोग फॉलो भी कर रहे हैं अपने लिए कि हम लोग भी घबरा नहीं रहे हैं। जो कुछ लोग बोलते हैं कि अरे यार ऐसा है, ये भी साफ कर सकता है, डिटर्जेंट आपका ये साफ कर सकता है, तो हम लोग को साफ करके दिखाते हैं। देखिए कलम का दाग लगाते हैं, उसके बाद उस पर गिराते हैं, उसको साफ कर दिखाते हैं, तब उनको विश्वास होता है। और उसका पीएच मान जब देखते हैं, यार सेवन कैसे जल की तरह कैसे साफ कर पाएगा, तो हम उनको करके दिखाते, तब उनको विश्वास होता है इस जीवन में। तो संघर्ष को घबराना नहीं है, संघर्ष देख करके और जीवन में लगे रहना है, तभी हम सफल हो पाएंगे। और कल किसी में बताना चाहूँ, मैं शाम को साहिबाबाद साइड में गया था, सोच रहे थे उससे कुछ खरीदारी करने गए थे बिटिया का। तो हम सोचे आज कुछ बिजनेस होना नहीं है, तो संजोग से हम दो चार लोगों से बात किए उस क्षेत्र के लोगों से। तो बाजार में मिल गए, उनको नीड्स थी, तो फोन उठाए पट से जो है, तुरंत कहे यार ऐसा ऐसा चीज है। वो कहीं मेडिकल कॉलेज में जांच उच कराए थे, तो उनको फाइबर की जरूरत थी और सैलमन उनको प्रोस्टेट प्रॉब्लम था। तो कहे कि डॉक्टर साहब ने कुछ रिकमेंड किया है तो आप हमको उसको दे दीजिए। तो जो जो प्रोडक्ट आपको कल उसमें हम ग्रुप में डाले भी हैं। और हमारे घर पर एक हमारे गांव के मुसलमान हैं, तो उनको पायरिया कोई नाऊ था, वो बताया कि जैनलाल के यहाँ ये पायरिया का कुछ प्रोडक्ट है उनके पास, बहुत अच्छा काम करता है। तो हमको ढूंढते ढूंढते घर पर आए कि हम संजोग से लेटे हुए आराम कर रहे थे, हमारी मैडम पूछे मास्टर साहब हैं? कह रहे हाँ हैं। तो हम सोचे कोई बात हो गई क्या। तो बैठे थे कुर्सी पर, तो हम बताए क्या चाचा क्या हाल है। कहने आप पायरी कोई प्रोडक्ट रखे हैं क्या? हम के हाँ हाँ रखे तो हैं। तो उनको मैं विटामिन सी भी दिया, एक ब्रश दिया और एक बड़ा वाला ग्लिस्टर दिया। तो हम कहे इसको करिएगा, जल्दबाजी मत निर्णय करिए कि नहीं 10 दिन में आपको तुरंत ठीक हो जाए, उसको लगातार करिएगा, आप पायरिया वगैरह जो है सब सही हो जाएगा। ये रहा एक्सपीरियंस सर। थैंक यू सर।
थैंक यू जयलाल सर। और अब हमारे बीच ज्योति रंजन सर ने हैंड रेज किया है। सो मोस्ट वेलकम ऑन डिजिटल स्क्रीन सर।
सर नमस्कार सभी को। मैं ज्योति रंजन मुंबई से एक एचआर हेड पोजीशन पे नौकरी करता हूँ और इस एमवे बिजनेस का एक प्राउड और पैशनेट ओनर हूँ। ये टॉक जब शुरू हुई तो मुझे एक चीज का ध्यान आया कि बहुत सारी टॉक्स में हमने सुना था कि जब ये एमवे बिजनेस भारत में आया और उस समय जब लोगों को लीडरशिप टॉक्स सुनते थे तो वो ऐसे ही इंग्लिश में होती थी और वो अमेरिकन इंग्लिश की एक्सेंट में होती थी और बहुत सारे लोगों को समझ में नहीं आता, लेकिन फिर भी सुनते थे उसमें से बार बार सुनते थे, बार बार सुनते थे, उससे वहां से कुछ ना कुछ उन्होंने पिकअप किया। तो हमको ये समझना चाहिए कि रिच डेवॉस जी ने जिस तरीके का बिजनेस जे वैन एंडल के साथ मिल करके जिस तरीके का बिजनेस उन्होंने सेटअप किया और एक छोटे से बेसमेंट से सेटअप किया, उन्होंने बताया कि जो नियरेस्ट वेयर हाउस था वो 4,000 किलोमीटर। तो हमको ये समझना है, मतलब मेरे रोंगटे खड़े हो रहे थे कि जिस चीज को मैं जितना समझ रहा हूं उससे वो कितना विशाल है। एक उन्होंने एक मेंशन किया जो कि बहुत ही भावुक चीज थी कि एक सज्जन थे जिनको कि कैंसर था और उनको इस बिजनेस में इंट्रोड्यूस किया उन्होंने। और फिर जब वो बिजनेस उन्होंने बना लिया और उसके बाद वो चले गए, लेकिन जब उनकी पत्नी बच्चे को लेकर के आई और भावुक होकर के बोली कि इसका फ्यूचर सुरक्षित है, एक बहुत बड़ी चीज होती है। हम अगर इस बिजनेस में नहीं हैं तो हमारे पास वैसी सुरक्षा नहीं है जैसी सुरक्षा इस बिजनेस के थ्रू हमारे भविष्य के लिए होती है। बहुत सारी पॉइंट्स टेक अवेज बहुत सारी हैं। एक एक्टिविटी में बताऊं, मैंने एक अपने मित्र हैं, साथ में काम भी करते हैं, उनको मैंने डेली प्लस, वो ऐसे ही बीमार पड़ रहे थे, मैंने बोला ठीक है ये तुम लो, डेली प्लस उनको मैंने दिया। और फिर 10 दिन तक मैं कोई ज्यादा बातचीत नहीं की इस बारे में, सिर्फ ये पूछा था ले रहे हो ले रहे हो। तो जब 10वें दिन जब मैंने उनसे पूछा कि ले रहे हो, बोले बहुत अच्छा है यार। तो मैंने कहा कि ठीक है, वेरी गुड, कंटिन्यू, और भी चीजें हैं लेकिन तुमको मैं धीरे धीरे मैं बताऊंगा। तो उन्होंने कहा कि नहीं नहीं मुझे दो चाहिए, 2 और डेली प्लस चाहिए। मैंने कहा ठीक है। और उनको उस समय तो मैंने मेरे पास जो स्टॉक में रखा था उसमें से दिया था, लेकिन अब उनको पीसी बनाया और उन्होंने 2 डेली प्लस के ऑर्डर्स उन्होंने लिए। और उनकी बेटी उनकी बेटी को कुछ हेल्थ इश्यूज हैं। तो मैंने कहा कि अभी वो बाहर हैं, वापस आएंगी। मैंने कहा आप बिल्कुल आइए, मैं मेरे जो हेल्थ मेंटर्स हैं उनके साथ भी मैं बात कराऊंगा ताकि आपको एकदम होलिस्टिक सॉल्यूशंस आपको मिले। दे मैं भी सकता हूँ, लेकिन जो परिचित होते हैं उनके केस में मैं डेफिनेटली एक सेकंड ओपिनियन, अपने एक्सपर्ट से एक बेटर ओपिनियन लेकर के ही मैं हेल्प करता हूँ। सो एक्साइटमेंट बहुत है। और भास्कर सर, थैंक यू फॉर कि आपने आज इस टॉक को प्ले किया। जैसा गौरी मैम ने बताया वैसे एग्जैक्टली मेरी भी वही पॉइंट है कि इसको दोबारा सुनना है, इसको तिबारा सुनना है, इसमें बहुत कुछ है। थैंक यू सो मच, बैक टू यू।
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू। आपके पर्सनालिटी से लग रहा है यस यू आर टू मच एक्साइटेड। और आपने बिल्कुल ये सही कहा कि इन्होंने अपने मित्र जेवान एंडल के साथ इस बिजनेस को स्टार्ट किया था। और जेवान एंडल उनके स्कूल के दोस्त थे। तो ये शो करता है कि दोस्ती को उन्होंने कितना आगे बढ़ाया और अमर कर दिया। और साथ में एक चीज और इससे स्पष्ट होती है कि ये बिजनेस लाइक माइंडेड लोगों का है। अगर ये लाइक माइंडेड को भी हम लोग सर्च करते हैं तो नो डाउट हम दिन प्रतिदिन आगे बढ़ेंगे। सो हमारे बीच मुकेश सिंह ने हैंड रेज किया है। सर मोस्ट वेलकम ऑन डिजिटल स्क्रीन।
ओके सर, थैंक यू और हैप्पी कट गुड मॉर्निंग। रियली आज की सीडी बहुत ही मतलब लाजवाब थी। जब करने का मतलब कि खास अभी दोस्ती की बात है। मैं इस सीडी को मतलब लेट ज्वाइन किया था, मैं दोबारा फिर से दोबारा दोबारा सुनूं। ठीक है। और इसी में कहा दोस्ती की बात है, रियली दोस्ती ऐसी होनी चाहिए, ये दोनों की दोस्ती की तरह होनी चाहिए कि हम जीवन भर के साथ रहे, दुनिया याद रखे कि हम इन लोगों की जो दोस्ती थी, बॉन्डिंग इतनी अच्छी बॉन्डिंग थी कि आज इनके कदमों पर लोग चलने के लिए तैयार है। इस तरह की दोस्ती होनी चाहिए really। और मैं एक कल का अपना एक एक्सपीरियंस शेयर करना चाहूंगा। कल मेरा दिन बहुत ही अच्छा रहा। ठीक है, हर डेली अच्छा रहा, कल कल बहुत ही जबरदस्त। एक तो सबसे पहले सुबह सुबह उठते क्या मतलब हमारे डायमंड आलोक सर का फोन आया था रियली। तो उससे लगा कि और अच्छा हो रही है। फिर हमारे अपलाइन राहुल जी का फोन आया था, तो हम लोग चलो ये और भी अच्छा होगा। और कल मेरे पास 3 से 4 हजार का ऑर्डर ऑटोमेटिक लोगों ने फोन कॉल किया, अब बोले मुझे ये चाहिए, मुझे ये चाहिए, मुझे ये चाहिए। कल मैं मीटिंग में होस्ट भी कर रहा था, उस दो कॉल आया, मुझे ये चाहिए, मुझे कैल्शियम चाहिए, कल मेरा ऑर्डर निकला हुआ था। तो ये कहने का मतलब कि डेली अगर हम ऐसे काम करते रहे, दिन तो डेली अच्छा होता है, डेली हम काम करें तो आज निकलेगा नहीं। तो ये मेरा कल का एक्सपीरियंस है। थैंक यू, बैक टू भास्कर सर।
थैंक यू मुकेश जी। और अब हमारे बीच डॉक्टर सुरेश द्विवेदी सर ने हैंड रेज किया। सर, मोस्ट वेलकम ऑन डिजिटल स्क्रीन इज योर्स। जी सर।
म्यूट नहीं हो रहा।
जी
थैंक यू भास्कर जी, थैंक यू वेरी
यस।
मच। आज रिच डिवॉस ने जो बताया ना कि ये बिजनेस की जो एमवे बिजनेस है क्या, और एमवे बिजनेस की जो खासियत है कि ये बिजनेस हम फैमिली बिजनेस है ना। ट्रिप्स अकेले आपको नहीं मिलती, आप दोनों जने जाते हो। ट्रांसफरेबिलिटी है इस बिजनेस में, है ना। आप ट्रांसफर कर सकते हो किसी को। और ये बिजनेस में कहा जाता है ना, कोई डिग्री नहीं चाहिए, कोई आपका सिर्फ क्वालिफिकेशन है कि 18 साल की एज है। इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? इसका मतलब इस बिजनेस को हम किसी को भी दे सकते हैं। हर इंसान को प्रोडक्ट्स की जरूरत है और हर इंसान को पैसे की जरूरत है। तो आप इस बिजनेस को किसी को भी दे सकते हो। इसका मतलब ये हुआ किसी को भी हम दे सकते हैं इस बिजनेस को। क्यों? क्योंकि हम सोप, वी सेल सोप बिकॉज पीपल बाय सोप। लोग खरीदते हैं इसलिए हम बेचते हैं। और हर आदमी खरीद को सोप की जरूरत है। तो इस बिजनेस को हम सबको दे सकते हैं। सबसे बड़ी चीज ये है, इंपॉर्टेंट बात ये है कि कोई ऐसा व्यक्ति नहीं है जिसको इस बिजनेस की जरूरत नहीं है। क्यों? क्योंकि ये बिजनेस में आप जब भी कोई भी बिल्ड करेगा, जहां तक बिल्ड करेगा उतना पैसा उसको जरूर आएगा। कुछ ना कुछ पैसा आता रहेगा उसको, है ना। वो पैसा अगर उसको आएगा तो वो आपको हरदम याद रखेगा कि यार आपकी वजह से ये पैसा मिल जाता है। अगर इस बिजनेस को हम इसलिए बिल्ड कर रहे हैं कि हमको पीवी चाहिए, हमको इस बिजनेस में पैसा चाहिए, तो शायद मुश्किल होता है बिजनेस को करना। हमको लोगों को इस बिजनेस को से सफल बनाना है, लोगों को पैसा दिलवाना है, लोगों की मदद करनी है। अगर हमारा कंसेप्ट, रिच डिवॉस ने यही कहा, अगर आप इस सोच के साथ बिल्ड कर रहे हैं बिजनेस को, तो बड़ा बिजनेस बिल्ड होगा। बिकॉज इस बिजनेस की जरूरत बहुत सारे लोगों को है, और आप उन सारे लोगों तक अगर नहीं पहुंच रहे हैं तो यू आर नॉट डूइंग द राइट थिंग। प्रोडक्ट हर इंसान को चाहिए, पैसा हर इंसान को चाहिए। तो इसलिए इस बिजनेस को हमको देने की में कंजूसी नहीं करनी चाहिए। हम देने में कंजूसी करते हैं कि हम लोगों से बात नहीं करेंगे, हम लोगों से, तो वो कंजूसी नहीं करके अगर हम इस कंसेप्ट को समझ जाए कि दिस बिजनेस एवरीवन नीड्स दिस बिजनेस। रिच डिवॉस से इसीलिए बिजनेस के बताया कि बिजनेस की खूबसूरती सिर्फ लोगों को ये बताना ना कि आप जो काम कर रहे हो उस काम को आपके बाद आपके बच्चे को ट्रांसफर नहीं होगा वो काम। भास्कर जी वकील हैं अगर, तो वकालत इनके बाद इनके बच्चे को ऑटोमेटिक ट्रांसफर नहीं होगी। उसको भी पढ़ना पड़ेगा, लॉ करना पड़ेगा उसको भी, एलएलबी करनी पड़ेगी। लेकिन इस बिजनेस में ट्रांसफरेबिलिटी है, ये ट्रांसफर किया जा सकता है, अपने आप ऑटोमेटिक ट्रांसफर हो जाता है। सो इस बिजनेस की खूबसूरती अगर हम लोगों को बताएं, इस बिजनेस की जो आज रिच डिवॉस ने जो पॉइंट्स बताए, उन चीजों को हम लोगों के साथ शेयर करें, तो एवरीवन इज रिक्वायरमेंट है, तब एक बड़ा बिजनेस आप। थैंक यू भास्कर, बैक टू यू।
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू। ग्रेट मैसेज फॉर आवर पार्टिसिपेंट्स। बिल्कुल नो डाउट ये ऐसा बिजनेस है कि इसको किसी को भी दिया जा सकता है। लेकिन हम अगर जॉब में या एडवोकेट, डॉक्टर्स या किसी भी सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयमेंट में हैं तो उसको ट्रांसफर नहीं कर सकते हैं। बिल्कुल सही बात आपने कहा सर। और अब मेरे बीच प्रियंका सिंघल ने हैंड रेज किया है। आपको मैंने अनम्यूट का रिक्वेस्ट दिया है मैम। दिस डिजिटल स्क्रीन इज योर्स।
हाँ, नमस्कार सभी को। और मैं डॉक्टर प्रियंका सिंघल, गायनेकोलॉजिस्ट हरिद्वार से। और इस सीडी से बहुत एक तो पहला ही उन्होंने जब बोला कि उनके पापा ने उनको हमेशा ये बोला कि अपनी डिक्शनरी से आई कांट वाला वर्ड बिल्कुल हटा देना है। तो यहाँ से एक सीख मिलती है कि बचपन से छोटे से ही अपने बच्चों को हमें राइट वो इनग्रेन उनको करते रहना है कि भाई, ताकि वो आगे बड़े होके वो अ, आगे उनकी पर्सनालिटी अप रहे। और ये चीजें बहुत मैटर करती हैं लाइफ में। और फैमिली का तो बहुत मुझे लगता है कि इस बिजनेस में बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट वो रहता है कि भी आज हम अच्छा कमा रहे हैं, पर यू नेवर नो कि कल कैसा हो, कल हम हैं नहीं हैं। तो एकदम जो आज जो लाइफस्टाइल हम मेंटेन कर पा रहे हैं, कल हमारे बच्चे कर पाएंगे या नहीं हमारी एब्सेंस में, एक वो बहुत बड़ा क्वेश्चन मार्क हो जाता है। तो अपने बच्चों के लिए, अपनी फैमिली को सिक्योर करने के लिए ये बिजनेस बनाने का बहुत बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट रीजन बन सकता है। अभी आई कैन शेयर कि हाँ, हमारे पड़ोस में ही अभी एक फैमिली में उनकी जो मम्मी है ना, हमारी एज की हैं, और वो अभी सडनली उनको कार्डियक अरेस्ट हुआ एंड शी डाइड एंड शी वाज द ओनली अर्निंग मेंबर। पापा है ही नहीं उनके। तो वो बच्चे अभी 12th क्लास में हैं। अब सोचिए उनके फ्यूचर को क्या एकदम सडन सेटबैक लगा होगा। तो वहीं अगर हम पहले से ही अपना एक एक अपना पैरेलल लाइन ये क्रिएट करके रखें, तो हमारे फैमिली को बहुत सिक्योरिटी इसमें मिल सकती है। और ये जो टॉक है, ये वाकई में जैसे सबने बोला, गौरी जी ने बोला कि ये बार बार सुनने की है, और सुनने के साथ नोट्स बनाने की है। और यही नोट्स फिर हम आगे जैसे सुरेश द्विवेदी सर ने बोला कि अपने जो हम कन्वर्सेशंस करते हैं अपने लोगों से, प्रोस्पेक्ट से, तो वहां ये वर्ड्स हम उनके सामने रख सकते हैं। तो दैट वाज फॉर टुडे। थैंक यू सो मच।
थैंक यू प्रियंका जी। आपने बहुत बढ़िया चीज हम लोगों के बीच शेयर किया, नो डाउट अप्रिशिएबल। और आज ये जो स्पीकर हम लोगों के सामने बोल रहे थे, इन्होंने इसका जो टाइटल ही था कि व्हाट मेक्स एमवे स्पेशल। तो हम लोग अगर इस प्लेटफॉर्म पर काम कर रहे हैं तो इसमें क्या स्पेशल है, इस चीज को जरूर समझते हैं। और चूंकि समय भी हम लोगों का बहुत तेजी से आगे बढ़ रहा है, तो अब हमारे बीच किसी का हैंड रेज नहीं है। सो मैं अब डिजिटल स्क्रीन पर बुलाना चाहता हूँ हमारे बीच मेंटर ऑफ द मेंटर नरेंद्र वाजपेयी सर। मोस्ट वेलकम ऑन डिजिटल स्क्रीन। आप आए और हम लोगों को अपना वैल्यूबल मैसेज शेयर करें।
थैंक यू भास्कर सर, थैंक यू। इसमें मेंटोर ऑफ द मेंटोर वर्ड यहाँ पर नहीं चलेगा, ये बिल्कुल नहीं चलेगा। चाह रहा हूँ हमारे जो लीडर्स हैं वो इस समय एएलएस में गए हुए हैं। हम क्वालिफाई नहीं कर पाए तो नहीं गए, और हम यहाँ आपके साथ और तैयारी कर रहे हैं, अगली बार की बढ़िया तैयारी कर रहे हैं। आज की इस टॉक को जब मैं सुन रहा था तो मुझे एमवे के बड़े पुराने सिद्धांतों की तरफ लगातार नजर गई, और कहीं ना कहीं उन्होंने उसका जिक्र किया। एक बात थी उसमें, होप। अगर आप कोई भी दूसरा कारोबार शुरू करो तो वहां पर अकेले होते हो, और उसके बाद वहां जो ड्रीम्स आप बनाते हो वो वेग रहते हैं। वहां पर ड्रीम स्पेसिफाई करने की बात है, और होप इतनी है कि वो कितना भी बड़ा ड्रीम चाहो तो बना सकते हो। और उन्होंने आज जिस ढंग से शुरुआत की बात की, इशारे किए, तो उससे साफ है कि आज हम जो शुरुआत कर रहे हैं उसमें हम कितना बड़ा सोचने में सक्षम हैं, वो कल का निर्धारक होगा। तो एक बात तो ये समझ में आ रही थी कि एवरीबडी शुड रिविजिट ड्रीम्स, और उसको बढ़िया खूबसूरती से सजाइए, बनाइए, उम्मीदों को सजाइए और उसको लगाइए कि यहाँ मुझे पहुँचना है। तो वो तो तभी हो सकता है जब आपकी मर्दानगी बहुत जाग उठे, आप अपने पूरे परिवार के सामने अपने को खोल सकें और ये कह सकें कि यहाँ तक हम जरूर पहुँचेंगे। तो ये थोड़ा-सा आज मुझे लग रहा था, ये तभी हो सकता है लगाने का काम। दूसरा जो पॉइंट मुझे वहाँ पर बहुत अच्छा लगा, जो किसी दूसरे बिज़नेस में नहीं है, वो दैट इज़ फैमिली बिज़नेस। यहाँ पर जो साथ मिलकर हस्बैंड, वाइफ, बच्चे सब मिलकर जो काम कर सकते हैं और एक सेम स्टेटस एन्जॉय कर सकते हैं, वो कहीं और नहीं है। तो ये ये चीज़ शेयर होनी चाहिए, ये चीज़ हृदय में लोगों के पहुँचनी चाहिए, तब तब कुछ बात अलग हो जाएगी। क्योंकि अगर हम अपनी फैमिली की तरफ देखें, सोसाइटी की हाईएस्ट फैमिलीज की तरफ देखें, वहाँ जो रोल वो लोग प्ले कर रहे हैं, कंपेनियन के रूप में जो प्ले कर रहे हैं, हम जब यहाँ देखते हैं तो अपने आज के जीवन में देखते हैं तो हमें फर्क दिख सकता है। तो हम वो स्टेटस हस्बैंड वाइफ का, फैमिली का क्रिएट कर सकते हैं। तो ये फैमिली बिजनेस है, इससे अच्छी कोई बात नहीं है, ये कहीं और नहीं मिलने वाला है। और तीसरी चीज जो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, जो पीछे 2-3 लेक्चर्स में घूम फिर कर आई थी और आज की टॉक से भी वो चीज सामने आई, और वो थी कि जो हम काम यहाँ पर करते हैं वो एक्चुअली ओवरपेड है। क्यों? क्योंकि जो वन वर्क होता है उसमें जितना काम करते हैं उतना ही तक का पेमेंट है। जैसे मैं जॉब में हूँ, भास्कर सर ने अभी इशारा किया था कि जॉब और सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयमेंट, तो इसकी एक लिमिट है, ये वन वर्क है। बट यहाँ पर जैसे ही आप काम शुरू करते हो, जो गौरी का पॉइंट था कि जैसे ही आप काम शुरू करते हो और जैसे ही और लोगों तक आप पहुंचना शुरू करते हो, शेयर करते हो, तो ये नेटवर्क की तरह काम करता है। इसलिए जो पेमेंट्स हैं वो मल्टीपल्स में आते हैं। तो ओवर पेड एक्टिविटी है ये, ओवर पेड, डेफिनेटली ओवर। तो जो रिवॉर्ड है दैट इज ग्रेट। तो होप फैमिली रिवॉर्ड का जो ये कॉन्सेप्ट है आज मुझे दिखाई दे रहा था जब वो बोल रहे थे, और मैं तो ये समझता हूँ कि इतनी समझ तो नहीं थी कि इतने बड़े बिजनेस को समझ जाते और उसकी वजह से करते। जैसे संजोग से इस दुनिया में जब आए तो जो माता पिता मिले वो मिल गए, तो इट वॉज अ लॉटरी। ऐसे ही जीवन में जितनी लॉटरीज लगी हैं उसमें से ये एक बहुत बड़ी लॉटरी है कि समझ में आ गया कि लाओ इसको करते हैं। ये बिजनेस नहीं समझ में आया, कहीं से दिल लग गया। तो ये बहुत किस्मत की बात थी। तो मैं अपने सभी साथियों से आज ये कहना चाहूंगा कि अपनी होप, जितनी बड़ी होप होगी उतना बड़ा आप आगे जा सकते हो, वो कल आपका होगा। इसलिए सबसे पहले रिविजिट योर ड्रीम्स। आज की टॉक से मैंने ये पकड़ा। दूसरी बात, पूरी फैमिली को प्रॉपरली इन्वॉल्व करें, ये आज की टॉक से पकड़ा। और तीसरी चीज कि ओवरपेड एक्टिविटी है, इसलिए बहुत खुश होकर के ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोगों तक इसको जल्दी पहुंचाएं, क्योंकि ना ऐसे प्रोडक्ट कहीं मिलेंगे, ना ऐसा बिजनेस कहीं मिलेगा। थैंक यू वेरी मच। थैंक यू।
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू। आपने बहुत ही फैंटेस्टिक मैसेज, ओवरपेड अपॉर्चुनिटी, ओवरपेड एक्टिविटी, ये बिल्कुल आज ये सिद्ध हो चुका है। और हम पुनः जो है उस जो लास्ट में उन्होंने कहा वो बात बहुत अच्छी लगी, और हमारे एक अभी पार्टिसिपेंट गौरी ने उस चीज को कहा भी था कि डाउट सीज द ऑब्स्टिकल्स, फेथ सीज द वे। डाउट सीज द डार्केस्ट right, but faith sees the day. Doubt dreads to take a step, but faith soars on high. Doubt questions who believes, faith answers. And I hope you can say, I believe, I know that I can do it. You just let me go. You go, you do it. इसी के साथ हम लोग यूनिवर्स को अपना स्लोगन देंगे, और मैंने सभी को अनम्यूट का रिक्वेस्ट दे दिया है, और हम लोग 3 पर बोलेंगे 1 2 3। I am the best.
I am the best.
I am the best.
I am the best. I am the best.
I am the best. I am the best.
best.